Awesome. So in this video, we'll be looking at LeetCode problem number 432, all over one data structure. So since this is a design problem, what we will do is we will look at a real world example, because that is how in interviews people are going to ask. That is, they won't ask you the problem directly, but they are going to ask you a real world example and how are you going to implement this. Now, let's take the example of LinkedIn in this case. Right, so in LinkedIn people are going to write many posts, and each post is having words, right? Say for example, you write a post, my job is great, or just job is great, and so on and so forth. Now your task is to find the word that is maximum or at most used. For example, this is post number 1 and there is a second post which says just job, work, and job. Now your task is to find out which is the word that is maximum use. So in this case, job has been used 3 times, right? So let us keep this in mind and let us start implementing this, right? So what is the requirement of this problem? The requirement is very simple. So whenever you are given a string, you have to do two functionalities. One is you have to increment the count of this string. So the data structure that you are going to implement will have this functionality. That is, will be incrementing the count of this. And the second requirement is you should also be able to decrement the count of this by 1, and increment is also by 1 by default. And you should also be able to get the maximum key. So in this case, job was the word that was used thrice, right? And also the minimum used word. So there are minimum used is used 1 times, great is used also used 1 time, and work is also used 1 time. So you can give any one of them when you are asked to get the minimum key. So this is the requirement. I hope you are clear with the requirements. Once you are clear with the requirements, let's get into the problem. All right. So if you are thinking about Hashmap, then great, you are in the right direction. So how do we store this in a Hashmap? It is very simple. All right. So for example, say we are asked and given. So let's increment A, B, C. So these are all the increments, and then A, then A, then A again. So what we just do, A will have count 1, then B will have count 1, C will have count 1. So once again, when A is called, you just come here, increment, then again it will get increment and it will become 4. So no problem until here. Now if you are asked to find the maximum, you will just come here and show the maximum. Now the problem arises when you start decrementing this. Say let's add B also here and it becomes 2. Now the problem arises when you start decrementing this. Let's say we decrement A thrice. So once you are decrementing this, what happens? A will become 1, B will become 2, and C will once again become 1. So how do you find which is the maximum? So in order to find the maximum, you have to go through the entire array. So in this case, or the entire hash map. So hash map isn't just sufficient. Why we have to go through the entire hash map to get the maximum and also to get the minimum? So this is a very costly operation. Now the second approach that you might be thinking is, let us just store the maximum count. Say in this case it was 4, right? So whenever we store 4, and we can also store the string which was the maximum string, the max string was job. And if at all, if anything is there with the frequency 5, we can just update this, right? If you are thinking in this way, good, but this will not be sufficient. Why? While decrementing this again, this will go out and you don't know which is the second word. It can be C, it can be B. So this hash map and just variables are not sufficient. So we will be needing two data structures. One is to store the count. That is, say for example, you have the word and you have the count. Say for example, it has occurred 5 times. And also on the other hand, you should also be storing the frequency to keyword mapping. Say for example, all the words which have occurred 5 times. Say there are 3 words, A, D, and E, and say a few words have occurred 4 times, C and F. So once you store like this, it's very easy. So now how do you add to this? It's very easy, right? So you get the frequency from the first, that is A is used 5, and you go here, you will find out A. Now it is very easy to increment. So to increment, the operation is very simple. So how we will be doing this? First of all, we need to get the frequency. What is the frequency of A? The frequency of A is 5. So we got that. So what is the second thing that we will be doing? We'll be checking in this. So what is the if A is present, A should be present there. So once A is present there, we will remove it from here because no longer the frequency is 5, and then we will add it to this. So A will be added to the frequency 6, and don't forget this A also has to be updated to 6. So this is how we increment, and in this case both of this can be satisfied, one with Hashmap, that is we'll store like this A of 5, and in this case we'll be using a tree map. Why? Tree map will easily give you the max key and also the min key. For example, say you are storing 6, 5 and 1, so it is very easy to get 6 and 1. Unlike a hash map, in a tree map you can easily get the maximum and also the minimum. So we will use the integer here and also whichever A, and in this case B, C and so on. So now let me explain and continue this. So whenever you are adding, you will remove it from here and add it to the next frequency, and also you will be updating it here. But don't forget, one more thing has to be done, that is the corner case. So for example, right, so this becomes empty. Say for example, now there is only one element in 6. Now again we are asked to increment A. What we will do, A we will change in this hash map, but don't forget this 7 will get A and this 6 will become empty. So you need to delete this 6. Don't forget to delete this 6. Why? Now suppose we are asked to decrement A couple of times, what happens? It will come to 5, but 6 will still be our maximum element, and that will cause a problem. So you have to remove this. So I have added this here. So if at all, if it becomes empty, you have to remove this. Then these two operations are very simple. That is, you will be adding both in the count map as well as the frequency map. The same thing goes on when you want to decrement as well. The same thing, but exactly in the opposite direction. And don't forget, once again, if it becomes 0, you should also remove it from the count map as well. And the other two operations, that getting the maximum key is very simple, because in the frequency map we can directly get the last key or the max key. Once you get that in the hash set, you can just give one of the element, and I have shared the code in the comment section. Thank you for watching the video. Please do like, share and subscribe.